Your TotalABA system comes with a handful of ICD10 and CPT codes already pre-built into the system. However, you may need to add your own or edit the descriptions of the codes that are currently in the system. This video will explain how this is done. To get to the code setup section, click the plus symbol, then click on the section named Code Setup. We'll start with diagnosis codes. So I'm going to click on the diagnosis code section, which will take me to a list of all of the current active diagnosis codes in your system. To edit any of the codes in your system, simply click the edit link next to the code, make any changes as you see fit, and hit save. If it's a diagnosis code that you no longer wish to use, you can just uncheck the active checkbox prior to hitting save, and that will keep it from being used in the future. Creating new diagnosis codes is simply a matter of pressing the New Diagnosis Code button at the top of the page, then enter in the code number, select the type, enter in the description, and save. Let's go back to the Code Setup menu and now explain procedure codes. So I'm going to click on the Procedure Codes link, which will take me to a list of all of the active procedure codes. Editing a procedure code is done the same way as with the diagnosis codes. Creating a new procedure code is a matter of pressing the New Procedure Code button at the top of the screen. As you can see, the new procedure code window has several more fields than the diagnosis code screen. So let's explain each one of these fields. The first thing that we'll do is enter the code number in the code field. In the code type field, select the most appropriate option for the code that you're currently entering. The treatment type field is optional. You can choose the type of treatment that this code is most associated with. If you always wish to have a modifier code associated to this procedure code, then simply press the lookup field next to the modifier field and select the appropriate modifier code from the list. If the modifier code you're looking for is not in the list, then you can go to the modifier code section and add it. Enter the description for the code in the description field. The private pay amount field is used to enter a dollar amount if this code is to be used in a private pay scenario. If so, enter the per unit price for the code. If the code you're entering is a unit-based code, then enter the minutes per unit here. For example, if we put 15, that means 15 minutes equals 1 unit for this code. If the code you're entering is not a unit-based code, then instead of minutes per unit, you'll use the unit per visit code. For example, if I put a 1 in here, that means that this code is 1 unit no matter how long the duration of the session. You will only be allowed to use either minutes per unit or units per visit. You will not be able to enter data into both. The maximum duration field is for situations when you are only allowed to use a certain number of time for a procedure code. This is common with T codes. With T codes, you often use a base code for the first 30 minutes of the session. Then, the rest of the time has to be recorded using a secondary code. So in that situation, I would enter a maximum duration of 30 minutes. The maximum units per day field is used for codes that have a restriction on the number of units that you can bill out per day. Entering a maximum units per day will prohibit a session from being signed off on if the units exceed what's entered in this field. The rounding method is used for the unit calculation. When a session is created, it takes the duration of the session and it uses that to calculate the number of billing units. If the time on the session does not divide perfectly into the minutes per unit on the code, then the system needs some way to tell how to round the units. The first option is full units rounded down. This means that the procedure code will always have a whole number for the units. Any fraction that results from the duration divided by the minutes per unit will be rounded down. For example, if the minutes per unit is 15 and the duration is 15 to 29 minutes, then 1 unit is calculated. If the duration is 30 to 44 minutes, then 2 units are calculated. If the duration is less than the minutes per unit, then 0 units are calculated. The next option is full units greater than 50%. This means that the procedure code will always have a whole number for the units. Any fractions that result from the duration divided by the minutes per unit will be rounded up or down depending on if the fraction is greater than 0.5. For example, if the minutes per unit is 30 and the duration is 16 to 29 minutes, then 1 unit is calculated. If the duration is 31 to 45 minutes, then 1 unit is still calculated. If the duration is 46 to 60 minutes, then 2 units are calculated. And if the duration is less or equal to half the minutes per unit, then 0 units are calculated. The next option is full units rounded up. This means that the procedure code will always have a whole number for the units. Any fractions that result from the duration divided by the minutes per unit will be rounded up. For example, if the minutes per unit is 15 and the duration is 1 to 15 minutes, then 1 unit is calculated. If the duration is 16 to 30 minutes, then 2 units are calculated. If the duration is 0, then 0 units are calculated. And the last option is partial units rounded down. This option allows for fractional units for the procedure on the session. It is only allowed when the minutes per unit are either 30 or 60. If 30 minutes per unit is used, then half units are calculated. If 60 minutes per unit is used, then quarter units are calculated. Some examples. If the minutes per unit is 30 and the duration is between 0 and 14 minutes, then 0 units are calculated. If the minutes per unit is 30 and the duration is 15 to 29 minutes, then 0.5 units are calculated. If the minutes per unit is 60 and the duration is 0 to 14 minutes, then 0 units are calculated. If the minutes per unit is 60 and the duration is 15 to 29 minutes, then 0.25 units are calculated. For more information on the rounding method, you can view the TotalABA help documentation. The last field on the new procedure code screen is the secondary code field. This field is used to automatically set a second procedure code when the primary code is selected. This is very common with T codes. For example, on procedure 0360T, the secondary code should be 0361T. When 0360T is selected on a session, then 0361T is automatically added as a procedure to that session as well. The primary procedure code automatically will have duration up to the maximum duration. Then the secondary code will receive the remaining billable minutes from the session. On your screen now is an example of 0360T. You can see that it has a secondary code of 0361T. Now the maximum duration for 0360T is 30 minutes. That means if the duration of the session is longer than 30 minutes, it will apply the first 30 minutes to 0360T, and then it will apply the remaining minutes to the 0361T. In other words, the secondary code will automatically be added to the session. This concludes the procedure code lesson. For more information, you can always refer to the TotalABA help documentation. Now, last but not least, let's talk about adding modifier codes. Click the plus symbol and go to the Code Setup section. Next, click on the Modifier Code section. You can edit any of these existing modifier codes by using the Edit button. To create a new modifier code, simply press the New Modifier Code button, fill out the code in the description, and then press Save.